All right. So you're just, all right. Gotcha. Well, cool. Well, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out.
Yeah,
And
thanks for having me.
absolutely. So before we get into your life and your work, I'm very interested in it. I want to know 4 years ago, this pandemic was going pretty hardcore. No one knew when we were going to get out of it. The lasting effects, all of that. How did you get through that time period and how did it change the way that you do live your life and do your work now?
Um, ooh, well, we were really fortunate because we live in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So we were all playing in the ocean every day. I was hiking with my son. We were having fires in the yard. There was no tourists here. There was no traffic. It was amazing for
Yeah.
us personally.
Yeah.
Um, it 3 years ago was really when I had like my life shift. It's when I like started doing this process again. I started sitting with plant medicine. I got sober. I started my own business. I got out of the restaurant industry. I stopped bartending. So 4 years ago, I was still just like kind of living a very hedonistic, drinking a lot, and just kind of making the best of it. I had
Yeah.
a really fun year. But as far as how it contributes to my life path now, I was still like in a very different place.
Yeah. So was it because of COVID that you made changes?
Mm-mm. No.
Okay.
No.
So let's get to what you do and we can kind of evolve into this point. If I put you in front of a bunch of third grade students right now at career day and one of the kids wanted to know what you did for a living, how would you explain it to them?
Um, I help people get unstuck
Okay.
and I help people live lives that feel more fun and real and authentic. So instead of people doing what they think they're supposed to do, I help people live lives where they get to do what they really want to do.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
I didn't ever know.
Okay.
I didn't know until I was almost 40.
Okay.
I mean, when I was like little girl, I wanted to be an Olympic gymnast.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I get it. There's all the big dreams of being a kid. So take me back to where you were born and raised, and what were the foundational seeds that have grown into figuring out your life at 40? How did all that happen?
So, I grew up mostly in Connecticut. I had two parents that were very much in the kind of personal growth, personal development field. My dad had created this process and other processes like it, and I kind of just rebelled because I feel like that's what a lot of kids do.
Yeah.
And I turned 18. I hated the East Coast. I started traveling. I ended up having Hawaii be home base and just traveling and surfing, and snowboarding, and partying, and just kind of living this really fun, hedonistic life that was just about as different as I still had some of the same values as the way that I was raised in terms of like how I treated people but I didn't take good care of myself. Um, I just kept ending up in like toxic relationships and just doing things that felt good now and weren't good for me the next day.
Yeah.
Um, and eventually in my late 30s, I woke up and I was like, wow, this isn't sustainable. It's not fulfilling.
Yep.
I want more. I need more. I have this child. I'm a single mom and like he deserves better. Like I'm
Yeah.
just not present and I deserve better and like these relationships are not what they could be or should be. Um and that's when I sat with plant medicine and I started doing the Lefkoe method and I was so fortunate that I had this process in my toolkit even though I'd kind of rebelled against it for so many years. And I started working on myself and my whole life changed. The first real big shift was getting sober and then realizing that like the path my life was on wasn't my true path. It wasn't authentic. I had chronic back pain and I went to this body worker. There's a technique called lomi lomi, which is like an ancient Hawaiian technique. And he was working on my hips and he was like, you're not on your right life path. Like I can feel it in your body. It was pretty amazing.
Wow.
Um, and so I just started like re-examining everything in my life. And, when you stop drinking, you kind of have to just find a whole new friend group, and like all the things that you do revolve around that.
Yeah.
I started spending more time in the ocean and more time with my son and more time just working on myself and creating community. Um, and then I was like, this tool, this process is so profoundly powerful. I mean, it's just amazing. And so I took all the trainings and I started my own practice. And now I wake up every day and I get to help people get out of pain and suffering and, put down vices that don't work for them and get out of relationships that don't work for them and get out of jobs that don't work for them and get out of depression and anxiety. And then on the other end, it's like, now that you're living this sustainable life, what do you really want to do?
Yeah.
Like what's gonna fill your cup and set your soul on fire, and what are your passions, and how do you have more of that in your life? People have this idea that life has to look a certain way, and it doesn't.
Right.
There's no rules, what
Sure.
works for you, and not what other people think should work for you, what actually works for you. So,
So who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration for you?
my father, for sure. Um, it's bittersweet because, he created all these like amazing processes, and um, when he died, I was still just in the throes of, you know, drinking and bartending and not any of this. Um, and he was proud of me anyway. He loved me anyway. He had nothing on what I did or didn't do. He was a really amazing human. He started his life really hard. He was very depressed for a long time, multiple failed marriages. And then he created this process and he just really turned his life around and wanted to save the world. He was a terrible businessman. Just wanted to help people get out of pain.
Yeah.
And he was such an amazing father, just a role model to see what that could look like. And he was an incredible husband to my mom. Incredible to have that role model. And when he died, we had kind of a celebration of life, and people just flew in from all over the world and just got up and spoke and just said what a huge impact he had made on their lives. And all these men had said, I'd never had a male friend that I could hug or say I love you to, or just be vulnerable. And he showed people how to just be in a way
Yeah.
that felt okay and authentic. So
That's a gift. So I'm curious if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now that may help you in your walk or you're just fascinated with, who would you love to meet and be around?
oh gosh, that's really hard. I would have loved to have met Ram Dass.
Yeah.
I don't know if that counts because he's not here. Well, I mean, he's not here anymore.
Right. The ghosts, that's fine. We can open it up to the other side. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I've been listening to a lot of his work recently. Um, and so much of this process that I do is it's a perception shift, right? And when you eliminate a belief, it's a really big perception shift. But even in the little things, right? This thing happened. How am I holding it? How am I looking at it that's producing the emotions it is? And what happens if I look at it differently? And it's just such a powerful thing. And I think he was kind of the master of that, at just stepping back and removing his own thoughts and ego and just being able to sit with things as they are.
Yeah.
And I think that's an amazing, I don't want to say gift because he worked really hard for it.
Yeah.
An amazing quality.
Sure. Sure. So I'm always curious when people make the move to Hawaii, what prompted the move and staying there? I know that there's a lot of natives that are there and some people come in for a little while and leave. What's been kind of the staying power and the allure of Hawaii for you?
It just became home.
Yeah.
I came here in 2000, one-way standby ticket, $500 in my pocket. Um, and now it's our home. Me and my son, we live here, we live on the beach. I'm an avid wing foiler. I tow foil, I surf. I spend lots of free time in the ocean, and it's been amazing to build a business where I get to make my own schedule. And so I get to really have that work-life balance of playing a lot. Uh, and I can't imagine not ever living right next to the ocean
Yeah,
again.
I bet. I bet. So, what is the motivation for you every day to get up and to do the work that you do? You're obviously giving a lot of yourself to helping people, but you also have to hold back for yourself and your life. What is that balance? What's the motivation every day?
Um, it's actually, I mean, sometimes sessions can be taxing, you're holding space for people that have had a lot of trauma and a lot of pain and a lot of grief, and but you're helping liberate them from that, right? Because our traumas happen. And for the most part, they're not happening anymore. But the meaning we give them, the beliefs we form about ourselves and life and people and relationships as a result of those traumas is what we carry in our everyday lives. And as we're able to eliminate those beliefs, you free yourself. It's like, you're limiting yourself um, with these beliefs. And as you shift them, eliminate them, all of a sudden you have this freedom, you have this power, and those things aren't driving you anymore. Um, I worked with this one man. It was actually his godmother was paying for sessions for him because she worked with me, and she was like, "I'd like you to work with him." And he had no money, couldn't hold a job, couldn't hold a relationship, alcoholic, just such a dysfunctional, unhappy, anxious, depressed human. And the first month, we'd have sessions and he wouldn't show up. He'd just go on benders and he'd disappear. And watching him transform his life and get rid of the guilt and the pain and the suffering that he had just been carrying around for decades. And he stopped drinking and he was able to find a job and hold a job, and like his whole world just shifted. I mean, he looked different. His energy was different. He told me at one point he ran into his ex-wife and she hardly even recognized him. Um, and that's so gratifying to help people just completely turn their lives around.
Yep.
He emails or texts me once a month and just a quick thank you. I never knew life could be like this.
Wow.
Um, and that feels amazing. I work on Zoom, so it's mostly remote, but I really love working in my community because I
Yeah.
feel like, every person you help on their journey is going to inspire other people's, and their kids' lives are going to be different, and their friends' lives, and their partners' lives, and their coworkers' lives. So it's just spreading light.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's the best advice you've ever gotten in your life?
Mm. When I was little, my dad told me to find something I love doing and then find a way to get paid to do it.
Yeah.
It just took me almost 40 years to figure out what I love doing. Um, yeah, yeah. And kind of the idea that, you know, that nothing has to look like anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's my favorite advice to pass on is people just think, oh, being a parent has to look like this, or being a whatever has to look, and it doesn't,
Right.
and when people realize that and they're able to remove the blocks in their way, all of a sudden they can live lives that are aligned with their passions and values as opposed to other people's.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's so freeing.
It's huge. So, of everything that you've done in your life and accomplished up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
My son.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a really special relationship. It's the two of us, and he's just my best friend, and we travel together, and we just we have a really good time, and it's awesome. Like, he's so helpful in my growth and my perspective, and always um he points stuff out where I'm like, wow, I didn't see that. Thank you for for showing that to me. Or if I get annoyed with him for being 11, that's not him, that's my unreasonable expectations. So like, I need to look at what do I believe or what do I have going on that's having me be frustrated by an 11-year-old being an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, it just brings so much uh, joy and fun into my world.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you. You can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained along the way. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
I tell them to do exactly what they're going to do because where I'm at now is exactly where I want to be. And if they did
Yep.
anything different, then I probably wouldn't be here.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
So I actually just created a workshop on identity.
Yeah.
And so it was a concept that I've been playing with a lot. Um, and it's a really interesting idea because who we think we are, right? I'm a wing foiler, I'm a surfer, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a girlfriend, I'm a whatever. But I feel like none of those things really make us who we are.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like at the end of the day, we are energy, right? We're all this human consciousness, right? Everything's vibration. So we're all energy. And I'm this little bit of energy having this human experience. And that energy is always changing, flowing, ebbing, vibrating higher, vibrating lower. Um, but like that's really who I am. And when we're able to step back and release ourselves from the beliefs I'm not good enough, that's who I am, I'm someone that's not deserving, or I'm someone that loves this or hates that, or it's all just so superficial and surface and keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard thing to to do, but to just try and remember that like who we really are is just this human consciousness, this energy. And trying to not limit myself in putting myself in boxes or being stuck.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this. Well, yeah, but I might also like that.
Yeah.
Like who knows? Is
Yeah.
that a fair answer?
Makes total sense. So I'm curious, kind of a fun question for you. If we get off this call, time machine pulls up, you can go anywhere in the history of human history and see one event with your own eyes. What would you love to have seen happen?
Oh my gosh.
It's a lot of stuff.
That's a really hard
A lot of
question.
stuff.
I mean, I think if I had a time machine, I would go back in time and just give my dad a hug.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are always my favorite answers to go back to the family or the lineage of your family and see things. Um,
Yeah.
So if anyone out there, speaking of your work and your dad, if anyone out there wants to reach out, they're ready for a change in their lives, how do they reach out and begin the process with you?
So if you want to work with me, it's just my name, Blake Lefkoe, BLAKE, LEF as in Frank, KOE. And my website is blakelefkoe.com and my email is blakelefkoe@gmail.com. Um, from the website, you can just like book a free 15-minute consultation, chat, ask questions, see where you're at, see what I do, anything you want to know. Um, I have a sliding scale. I really just want to be able to help anyone that's ready. Um, so I work with people for what they can afford and where they're at. Um, and it really is, everyone's like, you need a niche. You need a niche. Who do you work with? What do you do? And it's so hard with me because I really feel like anyone that's ready to change,
Yeah,
anyone that's ready to get unstuck, anyone that's ready to get out of pain, move through anxiety, people, we have these things in our lives that we do and we don't want to do them. We have these things in our lives that we want to do and we're not. And anyone that's ready to start and stop those things, it's a really incredible process. And some of the really common patterns that people come with are things like procrastination. Um, and when you have beliefs like I'm not good enough, Nothing I do is good enough. Mistakes and failures are bad. If I make a mistake, I'll be rejected. Well, you're gonna procrastinate because, like, you know, you're scared to make a mistake and nothing you do is gonna be good enough anyway, so why bother?
Yeah.
As you eliminate those beliefs, the patterns just start to shift organically. There's no integration. There's no, I have to remember to change my perspective, or I have to remember to breathe or think about this differently. Like you just literally nullify triggers. Um, and the patterns go away. And what's really cool is clients come with, I want to work on this. And they do. And then that thing shifts. I want to work on my weight or my overeating or my anxiety or my overwhelm. And then they keep coming back and they're like, I want to work on this pattern and this pattern. And then, eventually people get to the point where they're like, I'm really happy, doing really good. I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel stressed. And when I do, it feels okay and I don't take it personally. Um, and then people are able to move on. It's not like therapy. You don't just keep coming back.
Right.
Uh, and people that have had a lot more trauma and have a lot, addiction, that's a lot of beliefs, depression, it's a lot of beliefs. Um, but at the end of the day, the shift is really profound, and it's not something that you have to do forever. Helping people get off medication, and um, and there's so many modalities out there. I think people just sometimes give up. They haven't found anything that worked. They've read every book and they've taken every course and they've tried every therapy. And um, but I've felt really fortunate to be someone where people are like, I thought I had tried everything and nothing worked. And this works. Mm.
A lot of it's a holistic approach, though. Correct? I mean, and then it's about habit, the 90-day thing. I mean, it's like once you get to a point where you start, it's kind of like when people lose weight, they want to do one or two things, but it really is kind of a holistic approach of changing your
So
life.
the way that this works, it's really a step-by-step process, right? So you find a pattern, whatever the negative pattern is, behavioral or emotional. You find the beliefs that are causing that pattern. And then one by one, you go through this process and you eliminate those beliefs. And
Gotcha.
as those beliefs are eliminated, the patterns just start to change. It's not like it doesn't have to be a 90-day, it doesn't have to be
Gotcha.
building new habits. I mean, that's a part of changing your life. Um, but for example, personally, just growing up in this culture with the mom and the grandma that I grew up in, I had stuff about weight. Um, and it was just so much energy, just thought about it all the time. It was just, even if I ate the thing or I did the thing or I laid on the couch instead of whatever, it was just this constant energy drain.
Yeah.
And eliminating those beliefs around that just freed me. And now I have so much more time and energy and space to think about other things.
Yeah.
Um, and it was such like, it was a profound shift, but there was also subtle ways it showed up. My friend came over and she was like, "Are you cooking with butter?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "I've never seen you do that before." And I was like, "I don't think I ever have." And I didn't even realize that I was doing it. I had
Yeah.
just gotten rid of these fears.
Yeah.
Um, and I was just, everything just shifted. And some
Yeah.
of those shifts were subconscious.
Yeah. This has been great, Blake. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. I will make sure to have links in the show notes to get everybody out there that wants to reach out. So thank you for your time today. And send
Thank
all
you
my,
so much for having me.
yeah, and send my love to Hawaii.
I will.
Is there a good jazz station out there?
We don't have a lot of radio. We have a college radio station,
Okay.
and they play a lot of great stuff. It just depends who the DJ is, but we get quite a variety.
Okay. That's good.
UH.
Okay, cool. I'll have to take a listen for sure. Well, cool. Thank you again. I appreciate it. Best of luck with
Thank you
everything.
so much.
Thank you. Take care.